Hey everyone, I'm Jacob. My friends call me Dawud, and welcome to my vlog. Hey, I'm keen to just connect with you guys. I'm keen to show you what I'm working on. I'm keen for you to know more about me, and that's really kind of the purpose of these vlogs. I wanted to title this How to Become a Computer Musician and not just be writing EDM beats. Keen to write like kind of more, not progressive, but expansive songs that are going to take you on a journey, songs that aren't the typical EDM vibe, but still mostly written on a computer or using the computer, using a DAW, using electronic instruments, using synthesizers. So a little bit about me, my musical journey so far. Very, very blessed to grow up in somewhat of a musical household. My brother played clarinet and sax. My mum is actually a piano teacher. And still is, which is really cool. I am her most chaotic student that she's ever had, which is very, very funny to me because she's been teaching for literally decades. But yeah, no, I grew up with music. My mum's a piano teacher, was always around sort of classical music. I started on the violin when I was very young. I was about 6 years old, was playing violin. The only reason that I picked up the drums was the percussionist at the school band were actually leaving and they didn't have anyone to replace them. So they asked me. They knew that I could keep a beat in the string ensemble. They're like, don't bring anything, just rock up and we'll show you what to do. And that was my introductions into percussion and drumming. Absolutely fell in love with the drums. I was playing nonstop at like 11 and a half. I bought a secondhand drum kit. My amazing brother helped pay for half of it. We kind of put our money together and we bought this drum kit. And so I was getting lessons from, originally from Scott Davey, who was the OG drummer from Dead Letter Circus, this Brisbane band. I started getting drum lessons, and my drum teacher knew another drummer who wanted to be a guitarist and a frontman. And so it was actually 20 years ago on my 12th birthday, I met up with James and we started a band, and that became Slow Riots. We released a couple of CDs, was pretty much gigging and playing music professionally from, I would say, around 14 or 15 years old. I think my first gigs was around 15, 16 years old. Wasn't allowed in the bars, just came in, played the set, leave. I think I was allowed in like 10 minutes before the set just to, get set up, and then had to leave straight away. So we were playing up until around the time I was about 20 years old. Unfortunately, we split up. In 2017, I actually left the Gold Coast, left Brisbane and moved down to Victoria, and I didn't take my drums with me. So that went for a period of, several years where I never played anything. I think it was from 2017 until about 2022 that I just didn't touch an instrument at all. I had lost this massive part of me that I was so passionate about, and I just realized that there was this massive hole in my life that was empty. And so it was around 2022, 2023, I decided, you know what? I'm gonna start making music. I'd never been a songwriter. I'd only ever been in an environment where I was playing drums with other amazing songwriters and other amazing musicians. There's a big jump from just playing the drums and playing in a band environment to solo, making my own music, learning the mixing, learning the sound design, learning all of the different elements to making good tracks, and not just writing one or two riffs here and there. I picked up bits on guitar and bass and things, and I'd written some random riffs before, but I'd never written a full track up until I started actually making and producing my own music. So how I came up with my artist name. Little backstory, my dad is from Egypt and his last name is Dawud. In Arabic, this means David. Moving to Australia, he had to write his last name on the forms. He didn't know how to spell this. It actually turned into Dawud. Even though this is pronounced Dawud, if that's referring to my artist name, we're actually just calling it Dawud, which is my last name. I just spelt it in the original format, which would have been my last name if my dad had spelt it properly when he first moved to Australia. The story of Limerence, I guess, reflects how I approach my listening. I'd usually find an artist or an album that I would just fall in love with, and I would smash an album to the point where, you know, I would be listening to the whole album every day, or I'd be listening to some artist for months at a time. And after doing more and more research on limerence itself, I realized that it's actually a trait that some people with ADHD get. You know, it's getting obsessed with people or falling in love too quickly, which, you know, when I reflect back on me, and now that I've found out and been diagnosed with ADHD only last year, it's like, shit, that's actually me. And that's actually something that happens to me. So, you know, I think that subconsciously I was just, without realizing it, I've been making this album for the last 3 years without knowing that this was the album I was making. And the more and more that I unraveled it and uncovered it and really refined my ideas, it just made more and more sense that it was my subconscious writing this thing the whole time. So, you know, there's 11 tracks on the album. I'm definitely going to be releasing it this year, and hopefully actually in the next few months. I think I'm definitely committed on making or releasing one more single before the album, and I'm planning on kind of putting it in fairly quick succession. So single and then 3 or 4 weeks later album, or you know, single and then 4 to 6 weeks later album. And I think my goal at this point is to have everything out before the end of August is my goal at the moment. I think it's finally time to get a laptop for my live shows specifically and start booking gigs. I've been working on a live set for a little while with all of the tracks, or most of the tracks from the album. The master's done, the artwork's done, the artwork looks incredible, the masters sound amazing, everything is there except for the visual marketing material. And I guess that was one of the things that triggered this sort of long form vlog. The gear, what did I use to make the album? What kicked it all off was getting this. All right, this was the starting piece to the puzzle, which was buying a Maschine MK3. The reason why that was the big piece was I basically was using that as a controller and as a keyboard for a long time. And I got the Maschine DAW with MK3. I got a bunch of native instruments, you know, presets and plugins and all that. So, you know, using a lot of the Kontakt, using the Noir piano, using a lot of the different things that come in the Kontakt libraries, the sounds, the one-shots, the drum kits, like a lot of that stuff was used to build the album. I didn't write any of the album on this keyboard. I was using the old Casio keyboard that my original videos you can see, literally like those 90s keyboards that you get back in the day, the old school Casios. The reason I got this was for my live sets because I've got the faders, I've got you know, the dials, I've got the buttons, I've got everything on here to MIDI map and create an immersive live show. The drum kit was used for, I think, maybe 1 or 2 tracks. Take a Chance, which is already out, used live drums, and I recorded the whole thing on the drum kit, and then, you know, MIDI mapped it all and did it all through, you know, the Kontakt drum kits. Again, this Arturia Mini Freak is also another thing I picked up for the live set. So I've got, you know, I guess 2 different types of synths or things that I can be using for melodics. My plan for my live sets is really to have, you know, not using DJ decks, not using traditional mixing, but creating more of a live show where I can be playing some parts on here, I can be triggering things on the Maschine, and I can be switching between tracks and all that, using the Maschine as sort of the brains. When I first moved to Melbourne, I didn't have any instruments with me. I didn't have my drums, I didn't have a keyboard, I didn't have a guitar or anything like that. And I was listening to a lot of Steven Wilson, and the album To The Bone was just released. I just loved some of the guitar parts, and like my goal was to maybe learn some of the solos on guitar and start playing guitar more. And so I looked up on Facebook Marketplace and just picked up this guitar with an amp for like $150. And it's, look, honestly, it's a pretty bad sounding guitar. Definitely on the hunt for a new one because I'm not writing much stuff on the guitar because of just how bad it sounds. But I actually have one track that was written and has live guitar in it. That's the entire gear setup of what I've used. There's a lot of stuff with a lot of the piano and, you know, using the old Casio that I had. Didn't pick these up until after I'd written the album, which was when I started thinking about the live set. For anyone who's still watching, I appreciate it. Please follow along, subscribe if it's something that you actually want to see. This video is very much just an introduction to me. Thank you for your time. I will see you next episode.